All right, we used the last two lessons to talk about note names and how sharps relate to the musical alphabet. Let's talk about flats now. So flats are just really the opposite of sharps. So when you have a note in the musical alphabet and you go down or lower that note, it becomes a flat note. So for instance, if I know this note is a B, then the lowered note, or the note below it on the fretboard, is a B flat. If I know that this note is a E, then I know that the note below it on the fretboard, or a lowered E, is just called an E flat. So if I know that this note is a D, I know that a lowered D, or the note below it on the fretboard, is a D flat. Now, using our last couple lessons, if I know that this note right here is a C, the note above it is a C sharp. So this shows me that a C sharp and a D flat actually share the same fret. They're the same thing, they're the same note, they just can have two different names. The fancy musical word for this is enharmonic equivalent. So when one note has two different names, but it sounds the same, that's called an enharmonic equivalent. That can be confusing sometimes, but for now, let's just remember, if we're talking about being in a key that uses sharps, let's just think about sharps. And when we're talking about being in a key that uses flats, let's just use flats. Okay, so let's go ahead and figure out the note names using flats a couple times so we get the hang of that. The rule is the same as in the last two lessons. There's no flat between B and C or E and F. If we want to think about it backwards, we can. There's no flat between F and E and C and B. But it's the same exact rule. So since a flat is lowering a pitch on the fretboard, just to recreate that, let's go backwards from how we did the exercises in the first two lessons. Let's start up here at the 12th fret. And let's start on the 4th string, say. So the 4th string, Eddie ate dynamite. Goodbye, Eddie. Okay, so the 4th string relates to a D. We know that the open string is the same as the 12th fret, so the 12th fret 4th string is a D. So the note below D, or a lower D, is a D flat. Okay, so the note below D in the alphabet is C, so the next note is C. And here's our rule: between C and B, there is no flat, so we go directly to B. The note below B, or a lowered B, is a B flat, and then before it in the alphabet is an A, and then a lowered A is going to be an A flat, and then we just circle around or repeat the musical alphabet, so the note below A flat is going to be a G. A lowered G is G flat, so here's your G flat. Then below that in the alphabet comes F, and here's our rule: no flat between E and F, so the very next note is going to be an E. A lowered E is an E flat. The note before that in the alphabet is a D, so here's D. And we've come full circle, we're on the open string. Okay, so let's do this exercise one last time. Let's choose the 3rd string. So we know the 3rd string is, let's see, Eddie ate dynamite. Goodbye, Eddie. So the 3rd string relates to good. That means it's the note named G. Since we know the 12th fret is the same as the open string, we know the 12th fret is a G. So a lowered G is a G flat. The note before that in the musical alphabet is F. So here's F, and here's our rule. So there's no flat between F and E, so the next note is an E. A lowered E is an E flat, so here's E flat. The note before that is a D, and then a lowered D is a D flat. The note before that is a C, so here's C. And then here's our rule one more time, so no flat between B and C, or C and B, however you want to look at it. So the next note is going to be a B. And the note below that is a lowered B, so it's a B flat. And then before that's going to come an A, and a lowered A is an A flat. And then since the musical alphabet just repeats around and around, the note below that is going to be a G. And here we are full circle. We've completed the musical alphabet from G to G. Alright, you should be pretty bored of doing that by now, but this is an important and valuable musical concept. So take some time and do this exercise by yourself, doing sharps and flats, and make sure you can find your way around the fretboard using the note names.